It was an ordinary Friday evening at a large company office. The sound of laughter, clinking glasses, and music filled the hall. The company was celebrating the end of another successful year. Everyone was having fun. Everyone except one man. His name was Tom, the janitor. He was quiet, humble, and always working in the background. Every evening, he cleaned the floors, emptied the trash, and made sure everything was shining before he left. Most people barely noticed him. Some even forgot his name. To them, he was just the janitor. But Tom didn't mind. He was used to being invisible. As the party went on, Tom moved around with his mop and bucket, cleaning small messes left by the excited employees. A few of them were slightly drunk, laughing loudly and making jokes about everything, even people. And soon their attention turned to Tom. "Hey, Tom," one of them shouted. "You've been cleaning all week. Why don't you take a break and play us some music?" Everyone laughed. There was a shiny grand piano in the corner of the room, placed there for decoration. No one had touched it all night. "Yeah, Tom," another voice joined. "Let's see if you can even find the right keys." The laughter grew louder. Someone clapped. It was meant to be funny, a joke that would last only a few seconds. But instead of ignoring them or walking away, Tom slowly put his mop aside. His calm eyes looked at the piano for a moment. The crowd fell a little silent. Was he really going to do it? Without saying a single word, Tom walked across the room. His shoes made soft sounds on the shiny floor. People watched with amused faces. Some whispered, "This will be good." Expecting him to hit random keys and make a fool of himself, he stopped in front of the piano. For a few seconds, he just stood there, still, quiet, almost lost in thought. His hands were rough from years of work, not the kind of hands you'd imagine on a piano player. Yet, there was something calm and confident about the way he reached toward the keys. Tom sat down slowly on the piano bench. The lights from the chandelier reflected on his old uniform. He took a deep breath. For a moment, he didn't move, just looked at the keys as if greeting an old friend he hadn't seen in years. The room was full of mixed feelings: laughter, curiosity, boredom. No one expected anything magical. One man whispered, "Hurry up, janitor," and a few people chuckled again. Tom's fingers hovered over the piano, and the first note played. It was soft, gentle, almost like a whisper. The laughter stopped. He played another note, deeper this time, and another. The sound began to flow like water, smooth and emotional. It was not random. It was real music, rich, beautiful, filled with emotion. A strange silence filled the room. People who were laughing seconds ago stood frozen, his eyes locked on the janitor who was suddenly someone else, someone powerful, graceful, and full of feeling. His hands moved faster now, dancing across the keys with purpose and skill. The melody was sad, but strong. It's a kind that touches your heart, even if you don't know why. The CEO, standing near the bar, turned his head. His smile faded. His eyes followed every movement of Tom's hands. The noise of the party had completely disappeared. Only the piano spoke now, telling a story no one had heard before. Tom's face was calm, but his eyes carried something deep: memories, maybe pain. Each note seemed to come straight from his soul. It was not just music. It was a confession, a cry, a dream, all mixed into sound. When the last note finally faded, the room was silent again. No one moved. No one spoke. The same people who once laughed now stood speechless. And Tom, the janitor, quietly got up, gave a small smile, and walked back to his cleaning tools, as if nothing had happened. But everyone knew something had changed. No one would ever see him the same way again. That night, after everyone left the office party, Tom stayed behind to clean. The echo of his piano still floated in the empty hall. The chairs were out of place, glasses half full, confetti scattered across the floor. But the silence after his performance felt louder than the celebration itself. He wiped the same spot again and again, lost in thought. His heart was still racing. He hadn't touched a piano in years. He hadn't planned to play that night. It just happened. Something inside him woke up when he saw that piano, something he thought was gone forever. When Tom finished his work, he turned off the lights and stepped outside. The cool night air touched his face. He looked up at the stars and smiled sadly. "I didn't think I could still play like that," he whispered to himself as he walked home. Memories began to return like old photographs hidden in a dusty box. Years ago, before anyone knew him as the janitor, Tom had been a music teacher at a small school. He loved his job. Music was his life, and his students adored him. He believed that every child had a rhythm inside their heart, waiting to be found. Back then, his world was filled with laughter and song. He had a wife, Emily, who shared his love for music. She was a singer, gentle voice, kind soul. They used to perform together at small cafes, earning little money but endless happiness. When they played, they didn't need the world. They had each other. Then one day, everything changed. Emily got sick, suddenly, unexpectedly. What started as a mild cough turned into endless hospital visits, bills, and fear. Tom tried everything: extra lessons, late-night gigs, selling instruments, but nothing could save her. The night she passed away, Tom played her favorite song on the piano, tears falling on the keys. The melody echoed through the small hospital room, her hand weakly squeezing his until she couldn't anymore. That was the last time he played in public. After that, the piano became too painful to touch. He sold his instruments, stopped teaching, and focused on raising their little daughter. Lily, she was just 5 at the time, full of life, with her mother's eyes and his smile. Every time she laughed, he heard music again, and that became his reason to live. But raising a child alone was hard. The school where he worked shut down. Jobs were scarce. Bills didn't stop. So he took the only job he could find as a janitor in a large company. At first, it hurt his pride. People who once clapped for him now looked past him. He went from applause to silence, from being a teacher to being invisible, but he never complained. Every morning he made breakfast for Lily, helped her with homework, and promised her a better future. At night, after cleaning offices and polishing floors, he sometimes passed by the grand piano in the company lobby. When no one was around, he would sit for a moment, just to feel the keys under his fingers. He never played, only touched them as if afraid that the memories might come back too strong. But deep inside, the music was still there, waiting. When those employees joked and asked him to play at the party, they had no idea who he really was. They didn't know that once, his music had made people cry, smile, and fall in love. They didn't know that every note carried the memory of a woman he had lost and the promise to a little girl he still held close. That night, when he finally played again, it wasn't just for fun. It was for Emily, for Lily, for all the years he had stayed silent. As he reached his small apartment, Lily was asleep on the couch, her little arms wrapped around a blanket. Tom kissed her forehead softly and whispered, "One day, sweetheart, I'll play again for you." He looked at his old hands, tired, worn, but still steady. Maybe, just maybe, life was giving him a second chance. Outside, a dot. The wind carried a faint tune, almost like the sound of a piano, and for the first time in years, Tom didn't feel like a janitor. He felt like himself again. The next morning, the office was buzzing with whispers. Everyone was talking about the janitor who had played the piano at last night's party. Some said it was unbelievable. Others claimed it was just luck. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was something they would never forget. Tom arrived quietly, as always. He carried his old lunchbox and wore the same faded uniform. He didn't walk like a man who had amazed an entire company. He walked like someone who simply had a job to do. But this morning, people looked at him differently. Some nodded respectfully. Others smiled awkwardly, unsure of what to say. Tom simply gave a small nod in return and went back to his routine, mopping the floors, cleaning the tables, fixing broken things no one else noticed, in the CEO's office upstairs. The scene from last night still played in his mind. He couldn't focus on his papers. The sound of that piano had touched something deep inside him. He had seen many performances in his life, but none like that. That music carried pain, love, and hope, all without a single word. Downstairs, Tom was working near the same hall where the piano stood. It looked peaceful again, silent under the morning light. He paused for a second, glancing at it. His heart felt heavy, but alive. That instrument had opened a door he thought was locked forever. Later that afternoon, an employee named Sarah, who had laughed the loudest the night before, came to him. "Tom," she said softly, I didn't know you could play like that." Tom smiled gently. "It's just something I used to do a long time ago." She looked down, embarrassed. "We shouldn't have joked. I'm sorry." Tom nodded. "It's okay. Sometimes we don't know people until we really see them." Her eyes filled with emotion. She walked away, still thinking about his words. That evening, as Tom was finishing up, the CEO walked into the hall. He stood near the piano, watching Tom clean. "You played beautifully last night," he said. Tom froze for a moment, then turned around slowly. "Thank you, sir." "I didn't mean to interrupt the party." "Interrupt?" The CEO smiled. "You made it unforgettable." Tom looked down humbly. "It's been a long time since I touched a piano. I didn't even know I still could." The CEO studied him for a moment. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Tom hesitated. "My wife taught me. She was a singer. We used to play together." Something in his voice made the COO pause. "She must have been proud of you." Tom's eyes softened. "She was, until life got too hard." There was silence, the kind that feels heavy but full of understanding. The CEO finally said, "Tom, would you mind playing again? Just once more?" Tom blinked in surprise. "Now, yes," the CEO said with a smile. "For everyone." Tom looked unsure, but the kind eyes in front of him gave him courage. Slowly, he put down his cleaning cloth, walked to the piano, and sat down again. The same spot, the same silence. But this time, no one was laughing. Employees began to gather around, curious and quiet. Phones were tucked away. Eyes focused only on the man in the old uniform sitting before the piano. He took a deep breath. His fingers touched the keys once more. The melody began soft and slow, like a memory returning home. Each note floated through the air, warm and real. The office filled with sound that carried both sorrow and beauty. People stopped working. The building, usually filled with noise, now listened like a living thing. Somewhere near the back, Sarah wiped her tears. The CEO stood still, his heart heavy but grateful. Tom played until the last note faded into silence. No one clapped right away. They couldn't. The moment was too sacred, too pure. Then slowly, one by one, hands came together. Applause filled the hall, not for a janitor, but for a man whose music had touched their souls. And as Tom smiled quietly, he didn't see himself as a janitor anymore. He was what he had always been, a musician, a father, a man who still had music left to give. Asterisk when Tom finished playing. Silence filled the hall, deep, thick, and full of emotion. For a few seconds, no one even breathed. The air felt different, as if the sound of his piano was still floating between the walls. Then, one soft clap broke the stillness. Another followed. Within moments, the entire hall was filled with applause. Tom stood up slowly, surprised by the reaction. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. For years, people had walked past him without even noticing. And now, those same people were standing, clapping for him, their eyes wide, their hearts full. He gave a small nod and smiled. "Thank you," he said quietly. The CEO standing near the piano didn't clap at first. His eyes were still fixed on Tom, not the janitor, but the man who had just spoken through music more deeply than words ever could. Slowly, he wiped a tear from his cheek. Tom noticed, but said nothing. He simply picked up his cleaning rag and began to walk away. But the CEO stopped him. "Tom," he said softly, "don't go yet." Tom turned, a little confused. "Sir." The CEO took a deep breath. "I've seen hundreds of performances in my life, expensive concerts, famous musicians, but what you played just now, it felt real. It felt like truth." Tom looked down, embarrassed. It was just something I used to play for my wife. The CEO's face softened. She must have been very lucky. Tom nodded slowly. She loved music. It was our way of speaking when words were not enough. There was a pause, the kind that carries respect and understanding. Around them, employees were still whispering, some wiping away tears, some smiling at each other. The man they used to joke about had changed the entire room with a few keys and a broken heart. The CEO walked closer and said, "You know, Tom, last night, you reminded us all of something important." Tom raised his eyes. "What's that, sir?" "That talent doesn't always wear a suit," the CEO said. "Sometimes it wears a uniform." Those words hit Tom harder than applause ever could. His throat tightened. He wanted to say something, but no words came out. He simply nodded again. The CEO turned to the employees. "Everyone, remember this moment," he said. "Remember that greatness can come from anywhere." People clapped again, louder this time. Some even cheered his name. But Tom didn't feel proud. He felt grateful. For years, he had buried his gift, thinking it no longer mattered. Now, for the first time in a long time, he felt seen. That evening, when Tom went home, his daughter Lily ran to him, smiling wide. "Daddy, everyone's talking about you. You're on the company's website?" Tom blinked, surprised. "What?" She showed him her phone, a photo of him sitting at the piano, head bent, eyes closed, fingers flying across the keys. The caption read, "Our janitor reminded us what passion truly sounds like." Tom sat down on the couch, speechless. Lily hugged him tightly. "I knew you could do it, Daddy," she whispered. "Mom would be proud." Tears filled his eyes. "You think so?" "I know so," she said, smiling. That night, Tom sat by the window, looking at the stars. He remembered Emily's smile, her laughter, the way she used to sing next to him. For years, he thought her memory only brought pain. But now, her memory brought peace. Her love hadn't died. It had simply been waiting, like his music, for the right moment to return. At the same time, the CEO sat in his office, playing the video of Tom's performance on his phone. His wife entered the room and asked, "Who's playing?" He replied softly, "A man who reminded me what heart sounds like." She smiled, hearing the emotion in his voice. "Invite him again," she said. The CEO nodded. The world deserves to hear him. Back in his small apartment, Tom closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Maybe this is the beginning, not the end." Outside, the night was quiet, but in his heart, the music played again, steady, strong, and alive, and for the first time in many years. Tom believed that his story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next few days at the company felt different. People smiled more. They talked about music, dreams, and passion, all because of one quiet janitor named Tom. His piano performance had touched something deep inside everyone. The short video clip from the company party had spread quickly online. Within 2 days, it had thousands of views. People were commenting things like, "This man plays with his soul, and true talent never dies." Tom had no idea his story was being shared across the internet. He didn't even have social media. For him, life was the same. Wake up early, drop Lily at school, go to work, clean, and return home. But something inside him had changed. He hummed while cleaning. He smiled more. And sometimes, when the office was quiet, he sat at the piano again, not to perform, but to feel alive. One morning, the CEO called him to his office. Tom knocked gently on the door, nervous as always. "Come in, Tom," the CEO said warmly. Tom stepped inside, holding his cap in his hands. "Did I do something wrong, sir?" he asked softly. The CEO laughed kindly. "Wrong? You did something wonderful? Sit down." Tom hesitated, but obeyed. The CEO leaned forward. "Tom, that video of you playing? It's everywhere. People love it. Reporters are asking about you." Tom's eyes widened. "Me? But I didn't mean for that to happen." "I know," the CEO said. "But sometimes the world finds beauty on its own. And Tom, what you did, it wasn't just music. It was heart. Tom looked down shyly. "Thank you, sir. I just played what I felt." The CEO smiled. "And that's exactly why it worked." Then he continued. "Our company has a big charity event next month. Many important people will be there. Artists, business leaders, even a few celebrities. I want you to play the piano that night." Tom blinked in shock. "Me? On a stage?" "Yes, you," the CEO said. "You've already moved this company. Now, it's time to move the world." For a moment, Tom couldn't speak. The thought of performing in front of hundreds of people made his stomach twist. It had been years since he'd played for an audience. But then he thought of Lily, her smile, her belief in him. Slowly, he nodded. "If you think I can, then I'll try." CEO smiled proudly. "That's the spirit. And don't worry, we'll make sure you're ready." That night, Tom told Lily about it. Her eyes sparkled like stars. "Daddy, you're going to be on stage. Just like before?" Tom chuckled nervously. "Yes, but this time, it's a bit bigger." She hugged him tightly. "I'll be in the front row." From that day on, Tom began to practice every evening after work. The company gave him permission to use the piano in the hall. He played late into the night, rediscovering melodies he had once forgotten. His fingers grew smoother, his heart lighter. Each note reminded him of why he had ever loved music. Sometimes other employees stayed late just to listen. They didn't talk. They simply sat quietly as his music filled the building. Even the cleaners from other floors came by, smiling shyly as they watched him play. One night, Sarah brought Lily a small notebook. "Here," she said, "for your dad's songs." On the cover, she had written Tom's music for the world. Tom's eyes watered when he saw it. "Thank you," he whispered. As the charity event drew closer, Tom grew nervous. But every time fear crept in, Lily's voice echoed in his head. Mom would be proud. The night before the event, Tom stood alone in the empty hall. He ran his fingers across the piano keys and whispered, "Emily, this one's for you." He closed his eyes and played softly, feeling her presence in every note. Tomorrow, the world would hear his music again. But tonight, it was just a man, a piano, and a promise that no matter how hard life got, the heart would always find its song. And for Tom, that song was finally ready to be heard. The night of the charity event finally arrived. The city lights glowed like golden stars, and the Grand Hotel was alive with excitement. Expensive cars lined the street. Photographers flashed their cameras, and music echoed from inside the ballroom. But behind the stage, in a small quiet room, sat a man in a plain black suit. Tom, the janitor turned pianist. He looked down at his trembling hands. They were rough from years of work, but tonight they would speak louder than any voice ever could. His daughter, Lily, sat beside him, wearing a little blue dress. She held his hand tightly. "Are you nervous, Daddy?" she asked with a smile. Tom chuckled softly. "A little." She leaned closer. "Mom would be proud, you know." He took a deep breath, his eyes softening. "I hope so." The stage manager appeared at the door. "Mr. Tom, you're up next." Mr. Tom? It still sounded strange. A week ago, no one even used his name. Now, people spoke it with respect. As he stood, he looked at Lily. "Wish me luck," she squeezed his hand. "You don't need luck, Daddy. You have music," he smiled, his heart swelling with warmth. When he stepped onto the stage, the crowd quieted instantly. The spotlight hit him bright and warm. He could barely see the faces, but he felt their eyes watching. Rows of businessmen, artists, and celebrities waited in silence. Somewhere in the front row sat the CEO, smiling proudly, and beside him, Lily waved. Tom sat at the grand piano. It gleamed under the lights, polished to perfection. For a moment, he closed his eyes. The noise of the world disappeared. In that stillness, he felt her Emily, her laugh, her song, her love. Then, he began to play. The first note was soft, almost shy. Then another followed, stronger this time. Slowly, the melody grew. It was the same song he had once played for his wife, the same one that had brought him peace on lonely nights. but now it sounded different. Brighter, fuller, alive. The room fell completely silent. People leaned forward, drawn in by the sound. It wasn't just a performance, it was a story. Each note spoke of pain, struggle, and love that never gave up. His fingers moved faster, his expression filled with emotion. Halfway through, a tear rolled down his cheek. But he didn't stop. The music lifted, soared, and filled every corner of the hall. It was hope, pure and real. Lily watched with wide eyes. She had never seen her father like this. To her, he wasn't a janitor anymore. He was a star. When the final note came, Tom let it ring into the air, soft and long, like a goodbye that didn't hurt anymore. And then silence. For 1 second, no one moved. Then the entire hall stood. The applause was thunderous, endless. People were on their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. Cameras flashed, but Tom didn't see them. He only saw Lily, tears streaming down her cheeks, her hands clapping with all her heart. The CEO walked up on stage, clapping as he came. He placed a hand on Tom's shoulder and said into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we witnessed more than music. We witnessed courage, faith, and the power of never giving up. This man reminded us that greatness has no title." The crowd roared again. Tom's heart filled with gratitude so deep it almost hurt. He looked up toward the ceiling and whispered softly, "This one's for you, Emily." After the show, people lined up to meet him. Some wanted autographs, others just wanted to shake his hand. But Tom didn't care about fame. What mattered most was when Lily hugged him tightly and whispered, "You did it, Daddy. You made everyone feel what I always feel when you play." He smiled, holding her close. "As long as you're proud, that's all I need." Outside, the night was calm. The stars seemed to shine brighter, as if clapping for him too. The janitor who once cleaned floors had filled the world with music. He had lost everything once. But tonight, he found himself again. And as he walked out, hand in hand with his daughter, he knew one truth would stay forever. Dreams don't die. They just wait for you to believe again.